that this is the one that we're going to be able to win because we do think this is our suboptimal lineup. So just go have a run around. You know, we call it super rules in Australia. That's when the over 35-year-olds play football. Maybe there's a similar concept going on right now in the bottom lane for SKT.
Maybe so. But either way, Mata, of course, is going to be in here, and it's going to be fun. That's really all I am to say, because I don't think there is a compelling reason why he is the better play. It is SKT is giving him a game.
But as we go into draft, I just kind of want to flip this now from Splice's perspective. Again, the expectations are that they don't win this series, but I would love to see Splice given the best opportunity to take their sucker punch to actually land it now. If there is a time when you are going to pull out the crazy picks, the crazy strategies, this is one of the best coach teams in the LEC for having pre-planned ideas. This is your moment. Give it to me, Splice.
I want to point out something as well. SKT choosing blue here, right? That's also very interesting that so many of these teams had been choosing red. SKT said, you know what? They looked a lot better. Looked a lot better over in game 2. Let's keep that one going. And with the Elise coming in, the Renekton gets grabbed, no problem. There's the Ryze Anthem we expected last time. And this time, they do indeed grab the Kai'Sa and say, you know what? You're right. It's important that Kabi can carry. Give him this champion.
So now what is the answer going to be for Chachi against this Renekton? The other LEC teams have looked for the Ornn. The tank would certainly fit in his wheelhouse. And I'm just curious what his answer is going to be, or if he's going to go back towards his legendary Poppy and try to neutralize this lane.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. I also think that there is a point to be made that no matter how hard you lose top lane here, it will be ultimately decided by your bottom lane. So why not just take something like a Gangplank, right, and be able to add utility down there? Certainly not a great matchup for Gangplank. In fact, I would say it sucks to play into Renekton, but without the Elise there, it does limit the ability to be able to dive, and no AP champion also means that Tabby's going to get great value and things like that in the early game. So certainly an option to be able to play through.
And as we now head into secondary phase of bans, I expect SKT to put the pinch on Xerxes here with his champion pool, particularly those AD junglers, because he is already looking at an AP mid laner with that Ryze. So something like his Olaf, maybe even his Nocturne hits the bench.
I want to see what comes down here. I want to see a Lee Sin ban likely as well from the Splice side, as we have mostly mirrored matchups. The entire bot lane's been locked in for both teams.
Yeah, one of the issues is that Lee Sin is just missing from Xerxes' active champion pool right now. You can see that the AP junglers are being targeted out by Splice. AP junglers work so well with the dive threat from a Renekton because you have that diversified damage portfolio.
SKT moving the safe champions, though. And keep in mind, right, Renekton is one of those flexible champions where you could easily see it played by Faker as well and say, you know what, we'll get rid of the Gangplank because it would still be quasi-blind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, there is a great case to be made right now, given the fact that you're not going to have the harder CC coming out of the jungler on Splice's lineup, that Merktread's Renekton can probably lane fine into a Ryze, and Ryze doesn't have a dash to be able to get himself out of harm's way, and we've seen how much damage this champion can do in these kinds of matchups. I think it was Doinby that played it into a mid Syndra and absolutely ran away with the game. So.
Yeah, I love that point, because now we see SKT doubling down by banning both the blind top laners and saying, this is totally fine. You can give Xerxes one of his 80 comfort picks in that jungle there if he does want to go towards something like his Olaf. And it's more so about finding the matchup for the Renekton.
Rek'Sai, no surprise there. We knew that was going to be next up in the list.
That just preempts a Lee Sin lock-in here for me, because it is such a good matchup. And Clid has shown a willingness to disregard counter picks and still take one of his best champions in the Lee Sin.
I'd expect to see it, to be honest. I kind of would expect to see that one come through as Faker. Well, Teddy hovers different champions Faker's been known for, but might put him on a zero duty all the same. I love the smiles. Faker, this is his natural face at all times. He's very calm, very cool. Azir is going to come through for the Emperor of mid lane. We'll call out, we have seen Azir top as well, but I don't expect it here in the matchup.
Gives them good priority and pushing. We already talked about the...
Ooh.
We talked about the Lee Sin, but I do like the Skarner here.
So the reason the Skarner's fun is because he has himself the Thresh. So this is the ability to be able to set up, you know, the very long range Skarner grabs and being able to take someone a little bit more short range. Also, the fact that Kai'Sa just cannot fly into the back lane against Skarner until the QSS has been acquired. It's one of those champions that does negate a lot of the options that Kai'Sa has in the earlier stages.
And not just any Thresh, it's Mata's Thresh. I hope he plays his skin. How sick would that be? The Samsung white skin on the stage.
So he's very famous for saying that he will not play the skin until he feels like he is back in form of when the skin was created. So I think that that is certainly something I do not expect. That's why he dodged it when he was playing in the LPL. He also didn't play it when he returned to the LCK. Mata is one of those players that is so incredibly proud of the lineage that Samsung White lineup had. You know, some still say best team that ever played the game together, the way they revolutionized vision control and the dominance they had at that World Championship. And for Mata, you know, that skin would mean a lot, so I'd be very surprised to see it.
And just got confirmation from our stats. If Mata wins here, it would be his 50th international win. So you just saw Faker surpass the big 100. The next closest player to Faker, I believe, was Uzi at 55, no longer at the tournament. And then behind him, somewhere in the 40s, are guys like Perks. That is how dominant Faker has been.
Yeah, I think actually it's Wolf and Bang. Because they are...
Yeah, his old bot lane for 3 of the world's runs.
I wonder how they got all those wins, you know?
Well, regardless, we are on this one as the champions are locked in. The 3rd Orin game of the year for Vizicachi. Sadly, he's 0-2 in his earlier performances, and it's backs against the wall. Splice against a juggernaut that is SK Telecom T1. They bring in Mata for his 50th potential international win, and we'll see if they can pull this one over the line. Certainly the expected result, but the games are played for a reason, and I'm curious what gets played in this one skin-wise and how it comes out, because there's something telling about that every once in a while. On to the Rift we go. Championship Thresh, it looks like.
They did it!
Oh, it is? Oh, it is Samsung White Thresh. And you might, again, be confused with this one. If you missed Champion Select, Mata came out and said, I don't want to wear this skin until like I feel like I'm deserving of that level of skill again.
That's just such a great call out. This is going to be a really special moment for League of Legends fans because he's also crucial towards a composition. I want to see the coordination with Klid. Mata's engagements in League of Legends are honestly legendary. Go ask any North American fans about when he played on RNG at MSI and the amount of backline access he got on the Alistar. He's just always been one of those highlight reel players.
Well, back at Worlds, SKT by far the winningest organization at the World Championships. Winningest organization of all time in League of Legends, no shock there either. As Teddy is pushed back a little bit by Kabe.
And now in all of the celebration of Mata, again, looking to the flip side across from Splice, they've been so hungry for so long to get this opportunity. Chachi and Xerxes in particular have been denied so many world births before. So this time around on the Rek'Sai and the Ornn, the counter matchup that we were talking about into Renekton. I won't say counter matchup. The soft answer into making sure you don't get dove by Renekton repeatedly, as Chachi has had a massive target on his back this entire series.
And I do like the composition coming out of Splice, because it's one of those compositions that you look at it, oh, hooks on.
A lot of damage early, and Teddy already at half HP. They're going to walk away pretty cleanly. That's going to be really nice for the early lane.
Certainly is, and this is a Doran's Blade being picked up from Teddy as well, so it's not going to be as easy to top himself up without access to minions, and can get zoned quite easily, top lane. It's a lot of heavy trading. However, it is going to be the Rek'Sai that is much closer to the lane. However, one of the reasons you can do this when you're playing against a Rek'Sai is does need level 3 to really be able to impact good ganks. Needs that tunnel to be able to get in, so I don't expect Xerxes to come up here until he has completed at least his Raptor Can.
But it does mean that Krug will be on a earlier timer. We talk about this all the time in LEC. It's about 4:30, 4:35 with second rotation Krugs, which means on the next rotation of Krugs, if Khan is pressed forward, Khan needs to respect the fact that Xerxes will be on that side of the map and potentially look for a gank around the 5-minute window on top.
But I think that's why he's pushing, because the way the way the wave works is if it hits the turret, it will start to bounce back towards you, and obviously if you've got a HP advantage, as Khan looks like he does, as he's burned through all the corrupting pot charges there from Chachi, means that he should be able to control that and maybe set up a mini freeze for himself and deny that option from Xerxes jungle pathing.
After chugging a potion, Teddy himself actually decent in HP, has the biscuit in his back pocket if he needs that one as well, as Faker keeps pushing around and tries to deny some farm from Humanoid. Xerxes waiting in the wings, though. Not sure if he can find any ganks in the mid lane.
And I am quite interested in the fact that...
I think he's going to force it.
Yeah, potentially.
Okay, well, the flash, and it's instant. Faker sensed it coming, flash before the root can come through. Flash for flash in the mid lane.
But you would say that's a big victory there for Splice, because when you have a look at the jungle impact, you would say that Xerxes' flash still being available versus something like a Skarner certainly going to be in favor of them.
And there's a really important window. We were just talking about the bounce for top lane, but also for mid lane in particular. Azir really wants to get that bounce as early as possible, because if he doesn't have flash, he doesn't get to really abuse his kit and how strong he can be with his poke, with his wave push. So by ganking Azir before level 5, where really his wave clear just becomes uncontrollable on that first back, then you can try to slow down how much this Azir can take over the game and really protect his jungle, because he always has mid lane priority. So that was the one window where Splice got it. Yeah, it didn't mean a kill, but they need to follow up and try to abuse the fact that Faker shouldn't just have perma priority for a bit and has to respect not playing with flash.
Well, right now the wave is pushing toward Faker, so we can play safely if he needs to. Chachi gonna last it under the turret. A very deep ward comes in for Khan. And normally you see that one in the brush itself. Often that can be spotted by the Scryer's Bloom. This time around, though, he can still see the Krug camp when it comes up in about 30 seconds and play around that.
Because he knows there's a potential he could be ganked in that 4-minute to 5-minute window, so he's going to get eyes on it. You can also see that Clid popping in, making sure he's checking for vision so Khan can continue to play aggressive up in that top side.
And I'm really interested in the fact that SKT have now twice played this Draven lane as a weak side. They're just using it as a slow scaling answer. They're saying, Draven, if you don't dive him, is going to just be able to farm pretty freely in this lane, going to continue to build up his stacks, and we will get him a kill in the mid game, and then he's going to be able to take over. It's not like they're throwing additional resources down to Teddy.
I do want to point out the brilliant thing that our observers just showed us here, the fact that Xerxes used his sweeper but missed both of these crucial wards. So this is something that when reviewing the tape against SKT, teams will have to be aware of where they are placing their wards, because it's not usually where you would expect it to be, which is why Xerxes' sweeper missed it. Very well done from SKT on their vision.
Wave still being pushed in. The beginnings of a Glacial Shroud coming through for the Orange, trying to survive under turret, but you can see a 10 CS difference. Claim what scraps you can under the turret there, but it's an early lead for Khan up there as Clid takes another look at Aspire, takes that one over. Humanoid gonna not even keep his ward alive. That's gonna be a bit of a heartbreak. That's a long cooldown. 10 gold given over, vision lost. And Clid, aggressive control ward, has a lot of vision now in the opposing jungle.
Yeah, and a lot of this game is going to come down to how long can SKT can maintain this vision control, continue to farm, and get towards those item power spikes. Because I do feel like this can be a fairly active early game from Splash. You know, you have things like the Ryze Rek'Sai combo, Ryze as well as something like the Nautilus can also set up really strong ganks. And if you start to burn summoner spells at level 6, you can really look for those team fights as well with teleports coming through from people like Chachi. So I do think that SKT would be very content with the pace of the game right now. You know, obviously would love to be able to pick up the first Infernal Dragon of the game when you're running things like Azir. It is just such an attractive prize, but don't feel like they will be in such a rush to be able to go for that one.
I think it puts more emphasis on what you're alluding to, that with these teleports, and because it is an Infernal, that we expect kind of the big explosion point on this map to be around the bot lane, because they are playing for such a crucial objective. So we're waiting for the level 6s to come in and these teleports to be available, but Chachi using his just to get back into lane, there's now a window where SKT could try to abuse the teleport desync here.
And I'm really interested in your opinion on this one, Freak, as looks like Dragon might be started up, but we've seen a couple of times into the Ornn matchup, the Renekton's are still going with a Shojin Rush.
Right.
Whereas he doesn't build health, he normally builds flat armor, which to my understanding makes Cleaver such an attractive option.
Cleaver's actually a big damage buff. The one thing I do like about Shojin is it's not just like, oh, well, it's not armor pen, so it's not anti-tank. It's good for long fights, which when you want to kill a tank, it takes a long fight, so it lets you actually do the chase down, use the full like 10-15 seconds of Shojin buff, and get like 7 stuns off and kill the guy that way. So it actually does still have synergy with anti-tank play.
Hold on, dive potentially coming through.
Okay, Humanoid 1 versus 3, gonna hope he can stay alive, and that is a suppression into the stun, into way too much damage. And first blood comes through yet again for SKT.
And this bleeds over from the priority that Khan has had all game long in the top side. It gives him roam priority, the ability to first be the person to move. And yeah, Humanoid helped with his mid lane priority secure that Infernal, but because he was over in the Infernal, Faker then built up the slow crash, the wave crashed into the wave, and it gave so much time to SKT to just walk in with Skarner and Renekton.
Yeah, and that's what it was to me. The fact that they should have been able to trade that Infernal for one wave and then allowed Xerxes to regain control of mid lane with Humanoid. That wasn't the case. It was a rush play. And you can see that Clid now has access to that topside jungle and might look for a play.
They should know it's a 2-on-2 over this side of the map. Chachi gonna look for the stun, gonna go for Skarner as the primary target. No, oh, but he does have flash. They're gonna chase in for the knockup. Xerxes finds one, and Khan is forced to flash away. There might be a chase down though. Looking at the second play. Ult's gonna come across. That's a lot of damage, and he will find the kill. Splice answer back with a double in top lane.
And it is in the perfect area of the map. This is where SKT were looking to start to grow a lead, and Splice with perfect timing shut it down.
And it's going to mean so much there because it's going to alleviate so much pressure off of Chachi's back. And the fact is that they're not punished for not having that TP because there's no reason to play bot side. But let's take another look at this one and what went right for Splice.
Yeah, so able to dodge out on the stun meant that there was no CC available, and you were fighting with 2 ultimates available on the Splice side, and none from SKT, because they were both used on that mid lane dive against Humanoid. Once again, it was a greedy overreach. Xerxes in the perfect position, and Chachi makes sure of it this time.
All right, and look at the game state. It's very close, neck and neck between these squads. Splice getting that Infernal Drake is a big pickup there. I say they're actually leading the game at this state. And a late game Ornn, you give those free items over, that's some amazing scaling. So I do like the look for Splice so far in game 3.
But that's what I feels like we've kept saying. Yeah, in game number 2, things got a little bit wild and crazy when SKT went for that dive. But for this series so far, Splice have looked fine in the early game. You know, finding their small hit backs, maybe not converting as much against SKT, but finding some of those shots. It's when you transfer out of this, when you're able to build on a snowball, that's where Splice have really been hung up.
The kills come across. A flash lost by Vizichachi. That was Faker putting in the ult. Look for the shuffle. Didn't find it as Humanoid got away. That's now a missing cooldown that can be exploited. Klid's flash will come up first. Has the ulti available. Rise has to be careful.
Really nicely set up from there from Faker as well. Looked like he was just playing a pretty normal pattern. As a good inside track here from the lineup of Splice. It's around 10 minutes. You know, this Draven has just been stacking up the passive. This would be the next area, now that level 6 has been achieved, that you would want to look to shut down, you know. Get Xerxes' next Rek'Sai ultimate down here with Norscaron and Kobe. And try and ruin the momentum that Teddy is currently building on the Draven.
Still those desynced TP timers, though, that will sync up with the Infernal, at least for Splice. You can see that Chachi's is going to come up much earlier. So I agree with you. Not only do SKT really want to get things rolling for this Draven and help him cash in, but there's also going to be this pressure that's building around the Infernal spawning in 1:15. But before then, there's an opportunity to play top. Here we go, Splice.
3v1 has an ult, does not have flash. Xerxes going to pull aggro, stay out of range. The CC gets layered, and there is not a way to live. An excellent dive for Splice. The knockdown a plate, maybe a second.
That's just terrific League of Legends. You can see there is no response on the bottom side of the map. They did catch SKT in a reset as well. And that's just continued proactive play coming out of Xerxes and Humanoid.
And there's not an answer for SKT because their mid laner isn't playing with TP. So it's not like someone can immediately TP to help cover Khan. So great read from Splice to recognize where they can abuse this matchup and set up these dives and have the numbers advantage.
A lot of kills top side as the TPs come back into the various lanes. Humanoid rejoining the mid lane. Herald will be answered. That's going to be able to give some gold back to somebody. I probably wouldn't give it to Renekton, but we'll see what actually comes out of this one.
I think they might want to use it in the mid lane to try and get some form of control around the next Infernal Dragon, just looking straight up to the item breakpoints that have been reached. I don't know whether SKT are going to be comfortable fighting this one. They need to be able to create a numbers mismatch somewhere.
And depending what they do with the Herald, it actually looks like it's going to go into the top lane.
Okay.
I was going to say this was Splice where they get a kill on Khan, but because they take their resets and all go back to base, it means that SKT got the Herald away from them, but this is so strange how these teams are trading.
Well, with the Herald Summon, of course, they know Klid must be in the top lane. Khan no TP, Chachi has it, so that actually guarantees second Infernal is a freebie for Splice, or at least unanswerable for Splice. Now, top taking some damage, right? It's Khan with a lot of money, looking to get ahead in this matchup, but double Infernal is great to sit on for Splice here.
Do you think maybe they were just trying to snowball him to Shojin?
Yeah, I mean, they have
I'm trying to theorize it.
So I just think they felt like they can't fight, so they have to be able to drop a top lane. There is no teleport from Humanoid, so they can't force a 2v2 skirmish around it. And you can see that Khan doesn't have his teleport, so he felt like he couldn't make it down for the Infernal anyway. I feel like it is a bad trade. I don't think that they win out in any way. Ornn items plus double Infernal Dragon means the late game from this team is just absolutely disgusting.
So what we were trying to figure out here is, you know, why would a team like SKT make that type of decision when you could have tried to use the Herald mid lane to gain priority over Infernal and deny Splice potential for double Infernal? And I agree with Spawn. I don't think it's the best trade up, but I do think the reasons make sense.
Oh, and that setup was unanswerable. Dead underneath the turret, shuffle into Impale.
But Klid, stop taking kills, mate.
Yeah,
You're
I
not
agree.
the late game right there. You dragged him back into the turret. You did the job. A Sand Soldier had already tagged him up. Faker had actually left to be able to go collect the minion wave. Don't like to see that from SKT's jungler.
But that is one of the dangers that whenever you are missing that flash, which you pointed out when Humanoid burned it, you have to be so cautious of the swoop and scoop from Azir there, especially into Skarner's waiting hands.
The waiting claws, the waiting tail. We have a 1,400 gold lead for SK Telecom T1. The fact is, they got a lot of money into the top lane. Khan got all 5 plates in the first turret gold. Oh, that is a
nicely
hook.
done.
It's a lot of CC, but is it enough to kill him? Teddy is gonna drop, and a stun's going to come across on the Mata as well. That was a great setup. Norscarin did all the hard work.
And showcasing why people tried to take this Nautilus away from Norscarin right there. He looks like such a different player when he is playing this comfort pick.
But just a different look from the entirety of the Splice lineup. That is decisiveness. Chachi is still looking to go in.
Got him.
Oh, that is another hook right on in, and Faker just can't get away. Splice find kill after kill. The bot lane is open. They're going to claim this turret.
And just like you're saying, they got the double Inferno. They pick up so many kills, punishing SKT's mistakes, and now taking this tower. And we talked about how so much gold was invested into this Renekton to get him to Spear of Shojin. You now have so much gold invested into both the Ryze and Kai'Sa here.
I mean, that was honestly just a beautiful play. The fact that Chachi was willing to walk down from the top lane to be here. You can see he comes into the jungle, and then the decisiveness of Norscarin to be able to land the hook. Great layering of CC meant that Teddy could not get out. And then it's the little things in League of Legends. We're going to see Faker approach this fight. We're going to see, once again, another great hook land. But there is going to be a lantern there, and it will be warded out. Very nicely done from the members of Splice, and Faker just cannot escape.
Oh, tried to click on the lantern, instead he hit the ward.
Autos hit thrice, and that was enough time. Well played. Norscarin doing so much hard work here, and looking at Khan, forcing him back. And look at this game. 300 gold lead and double Inferno for Splice at 15 minutes.
And this is the iteration of Splice that was able to take down FPX in that single game. And this is the best case scenario that you get for the LEC third representative. But we're now to that white knuckle stage of the game where, okay, lane phase is over. Now it's time to transition Splice into that mid game. Can they continue to snowball? Can they find the right lane assignments to attack?
However, it is going to be very important that they crack this top lane turret at the same time, because if the map is big, Faker doesn't want a side lane on Azir. However, Ryze is very comfortable in that area, especially given the fact that he's going towards QSS.
Oh, that's right. Over the wall, Matza has to flash the flash hook though. They're going for everything they can. Kabe's there just barely. The lantern has arrived. Matza saving his mid laner.
But the damage has been done because it still gives Splice access to the mid lane tower, and that's what they came here for. Teddy will trade for a tower across map, but this is still Splice trading up in objectives.
And that's what I was saying. As Faker, you do not want to be in a side lane, so he has to stay mid. That gives them an area to be able to attack. They look for the pick. They are able to also get Matza's flash. Thresh without flash, especially without Hex flash, which is kind of strange to me, is one of those champions that is very easy to be able to take down in these fights. And I feel like with the map so big, with Baron coming up in the next 4 minutes, and with another Infernal Dragon, when Splice is so strong, they just have the perfect objectives to be able to set up with this comp.
But there is a moment here where SKT do have tempo because they got the earlier reset, and they also have pick between the Skarner and the Thresh. So like you're saying, they were looking for that window to try to just immediately kill someone on Splice before this Infernal respawns. Splice playing it by the book though. They get mid lane priority, and now they will try to choke SKT out of this river.
They're going to keep pushing on forward, looking for the next big play. Predator burn, but not going to find the target. Third Infernal, right behind SKT. The ward control going to the side of the LCK champions. Norscarin comes in, looks for the big play, finds the root, shuffles him backwards, the hook in the front line as well, but Faker just attacked, and Xerxes going to find that kill. Now it's up to Khan to the backside. It's a 1-for-1 so far. A second kill for SKT. They're chasing in for more. Khan cannot die, and they're going to push in. Look for kill number 4. No way out for Vizichachi. A triple kill for the Draven. Teddy is rich.
And it's a slaughter. SKT smash Splice. Once again, it's the inability to be able to gain vision control over the area you're fighting. They didn't want to give it up. They wanted to continue to push this lead, but without Chachi's ultimate, without the tools required, that is not a winning fight for Splice.
And it was just the wrong call. You had mid lane priority. Maybe you try to force SKT out of that river by pushing down the mid lane and wait until you have those big key ultimates. But if it's the stage jitters, if it's the lack of experience, Splice decided to stand strong, and they got ripped apart by the team fighting beast of SKT.
And you can see it is into the blind fog of war that Humanoid will look to go. Cersei with a great cleanup kill, but you have left your back line completely exposed to Khan's Renekton. He creates so much space, and Teddy uses all of it to do maximum damage.
And everything had looked so good for Splice up until this point. You said it, Freak. Teddy is now rich. This Draven is going to hit like a truck. Double BF completed with the Infinity Edge and the Bloodthirster. Draven at this point is actually just a poke-based champion. If he just rocks past you, hits you with the single axe on that crit, and he'll chunk you out.
Yeah, I think a non-crit's around 400 damage. With the crit, it's 530 or something. It's going to be painful. It's going to be tough to deal with. We'll see what actually happens here, but SKT grabbed the gold lead back. They grabbed this Infernal Drake back as well. Most of the power of Drakes are front-loaded into that first Drake, so it's not even like a full one dragon difference. It's like 3/4 of a dragon difference in terms of actual stat value. SKT have climbed back into this game. Now looking at the tower dive, the Lantern is there. On top of them, though, is the rest of Splice, and they found one. Northscare to the front line. They found some stuns, but it's still a trade kill. Some time is borrowed to knock down the turret, putting it down to about 1/3 HP, and it's going to be enough to knock that one down as well. Now, will there be a team fight as Faker comes up?
Really great decisive call there from Splice to be able to go for that dive. They saw Faker in the top side of the map. And I always talk to Ejim about roles on teams, and he always says, this is ideas guy. Like, we can do this. We can look for this creative dive. And you are seeing how much momentum they generate off the back of going for these aggressive plays in this game. Now, what I'm really interested to track is if they continue to look for these plays, or whether there's someone on Splice that says, hey guys, we should stop doing this now. Baron is up and available. If we control the area, we have great team fight tools, and we can still look to close this game out through doing what our comp does. These dives are getting very risky right now for Splice.
I agree with you. I do think that Splice are a team that tend to rely on team fights to leverage advantages as opposed to manufacturing picks or playing kind of a vision denial game, playing a side lane pressure game that the G2s and the Fnatic are known for.
Yeah, and this is a great example of it. We just saw Northscare and Tony Sweeper on and walk without anyone next to him through Fog of War. Now that's something little, but you do not clear any vision as a Nautilus by yourself in that fashion. You should be waiting for this mid lane priority to be achieved, then sweeping up with your AD carry and being able to take out maximum vision. SKT right now, against Prio, have complete vision over the Baron area.
800 gold, 500, 400. That's about the difference right here. Splice looking to see if they can take that top river yet again. Faker, 60th Azir game in his pro career. His most played champion has yet to be the real pop-off player, but there is a very scary backlane on this SKT side. If you don't stop Faker, Teddy kills you. If you stop Teddy, maybe Faker kills you.
And SKT just pinged out the ward that Chachi is about to walk over right now. And as long as that ward exists on Summoner's Rift, they do not have to fight for any control over the map, because they know that they're not going to be on Baron. So you can see they're just seeding pressure right now, absorbing as much farm as they possibly can, trying to get Faker towards that 2 or 3 item mark.
Yeah, and now the emphasis is on Splice. Can they, A, clear out and deny the vision successfully? You can see that the control ward in Baron doesn't spot the ward that Spawn just illuminated. Or B, actually force SKT into a fight by using something like the Ornn ultimate, because right now, Splice are slowed down. They're almost at a complete standstill and stop for all of the momentum that they had.
Minor point I want to bring up, speaking of Ornn, is the first couple power spikes have come through. Chachi has his two upgraded items, just upped the Black Cleaver of Xerxes, so you don't see it in the gold, but the stats are certainly there. Splice have a couple thousand extra gold worth of attack damage, health, and magic-resistant armor. See if that can pay forward in the next fight.
And Splice were so bold on their call to dive that bottom lane tower, and just to echo again Spawn, now I want them to be bold on setting up for this Baron. They've made the recalls. You can see in their inventory it was Northscare that's picked up some control wards. So they need to survive this push from SKT, get mid priority back, and then start the proper setup of Baron.
But this is what his experience looks like. SKT catch the Splice members on vision in their reset. So they force up mid lane. They're able to now grab the mid lane turret. With the sand turret also there, they're going to be able to move in and start contesting for this vision, only doing it on windows that suits them.
Well, Splice looking for their way forward, though. Not finding the CC just yet. SKT not easily approachable right now. This top river is going to be a ward fight. Ocean Drake spawns, but the top river more important right now is Splice move forward, and they've got better control wards. They don't get rid of all of SKT's, though, and they're going to start the fight right now. They are technically in Fog of War, but SKT know what's going on. Clid moves forward, half HP on the Baron. At what point can Clid make their way in? Northscare can go for the CC, forces the ult out, and they're going to turn back for the fight. The Croucher on the front line. Into the back goes Kame. It's a 2-for-1 so far. Faker knocked up. He's running. Exhaust is on the ult to try to stay alive, but it's SKT who are routed, and over the top goes Xerxes. The kills are coming through to Splice. They would need to reverse sweep, and game 3 is going to them.
But they finally found their opportunity, Freak. They set up the Baron, they got the team fight that they wanted. That gold came through from Ornn. It's now Splyce on the Baron, and SKT will do nothing but watch.
And the recognition that this was the objective where they should be fighting. This is the area they can force SKT to come. And now with the Baron, they are in complete control of this game.
In the mid-game, in Splyce's weakest part against SKT's strongest, they make the call. They say this game is close, start the Baron, turn the fight, and they smash it.
And they simplified the execution. This isn't Splyce playing one of their kooky strategies. This is literally with an Ornn, with a tank top laner, with Kobbe on something like the Kai'Sa, and just playing clean, fundamental League of Legends to catch SKT like this.
Yeah, and I mean, everything just went right. They were able to get the Aftershock down on the Nautilus before he was taken into that Skarner ultimate. That meant that he was very tanky, survived long enough to get maximum CC, and Kobbe, just fearless, flies into the backline and does so much damage.
He instant ulted to find backline access, and that was just so much damage right there, right? Second highest on his team right there. Rushes Zhonya's. That Nugget's upgraded as well through the Ornn. Extra armor, extra AP. Splyce certainly online now.
But now it feels like that tense moment. Splyce finally get a Baron, their first Baron of the entire series so far. You're still against SKT. It's not really over until that Nexus goes down when you're against this type of team.
Nah, trust me, easy. This game done.
Easy done. GG next.
I think like the reason I am quite jokingly saying that, but you know, I think that they do have the ability right now to just group up as 5. I was talking to Freak and Chat about this before the show, but the changes to Baron minions made it really easy when you have the ability to dive to just be able to push through these turrets. The structures will fall so quickly. However, you are seeing not much aggression out of Splyce right now. They instead want to just be able to break the outer ring.
Splyce aren't the greatest team at syncing waves. When you watch teams like SKT, RNG are also very famous for it. When they get a Baron, it feels like they accomplish so much in terms of their Baron power plays because they're excellent at manipulating the waves to all crash at once, whereas you can see Splyce are really desynced on their waves. They got the mid lane with mid-wave pushed in, but now they're trying to get the top lane. They want it to even up with the bot lane, and it just means they're not as efficient with Baron buffs as some of our other world-class representatives.
However, it doesn't look like it's mattering right now because Kobbe is just smacking mid-lane turret, looking to get as much damage done there as possible, and as long as they can threaten the dive, I feel like this shouldn't be as much of an issue for Splyce.
Well, top lane tier 2 certainly under fire right now. Splyce going to claim turret number 6. The Baron power play well over 3,000 gold. That's a solid one. Xerxes, the one shepherding the team, but Faker goes in for the big play. Is there a way out? He's got a lot to jump through and barely gets away from whirling death. Xerxes stays alive, and now it's up to Khan. Up in the top side, gets Lantern back, and is Chachi bitten off more than he can chew. It's going to be a lot of damage towards him, and Teddy claims that kill. Turret does not fall, and Humanoid is trying to run, but Faker's on the chase. Khan's going to get the shutdown, and Splyce go too deep in the top lane.
And unfortunately, now the Baron power play is back to 1,800, looking at that 2,000 range. So, yep, that was kind of one of those things that we see from Splyce domestically. It hasn't really changed on the international stage. To go back to your point, though, you know, play what you're good at. This is a Splyce composition, but they do need to clean up these elements of gameplay if they actually want to have a shot at the series.
And this is Faker just making sure that he's trying to stay proactive. The answer is there on the other side of the map, but the inability to drag Kobbe into this play is what is a worrying sign. Kobbe, this time not flying into the backline, is desynced in the rest of the fight, and with the exception of that W, I'm pretty sure it does next to no damage. So Splyce not fighting around their strongest member and not able to generate 5v5s, which is what this composition is so good at.
Well, still with some lane control. Splyce grab the Ocean Drake when it's convenient. That had spawned actually before the Baron was even contested, and well, at least they claimed that there. So it's a little bit of late game insurance. Void Staff now through for the Rise. Has been a big damage source, right? He has been a big factor here. And so we'll see if Humanoid can make that happen in a late game team fight.
And now I'm going to word this very carefully. However, Faker is only at 2 items. And he's coming off the back end of a pretty poor performance. And is once again down in CS and doesn't really have a position right now where he can play safely to get towards any of those other areas. He's going to be pretty much relegated to being utility for his team.
He's a vacuum cleaner.
I feel like in the next couple of fights, he's not going to do all that much damage, I don't feel. And this has been back-to-back rough performances for the greatest mid laner ever.
I mean,
yes.
Faker's here for Hoover duty. He's He's their big wave clear. He's about creating small pressure points and, again, creating space for the true damage threats. I won't say true damage threats. The current damage threats on this SKT composition, like a Draven, who really does rely on a lot of zone control, so he can sit there and get multiple axes into opponents.
We've got a reset game right now. 1 minute to go till Baron spawns. The waves are still pushed in Splice's favor. Right, Chachi shoving in the top lane. Bot was already pushed in. Mid lane, you can see where SKT are challenging it. And at some point, the Korean squad has to turn it around, come back from a 3,000 gold deficit, and fight back for this top river.
And they'll have an opportunity in a true 5v5 because, like you said, it's going to be 45 seconds onto the Baron. We expect this to be another Baron setup. You can see the control wards through Splice's inventory. So it's about how creative SKT get at playing from that vision deficit.
Because the first Baron did a lot of damage to the base. So it's not like SKT can sit here and just weather the storm of another one of those buffs. I feel like they are going to have to fight. And once again, whilst you have a look at Renekton as well as the Draven, they are completely ready. They are online. They are at the break points that you would want at this stage of the game. I'm looking at Faker, who is a full item behind the Rise. And the amount of, tankiness and magic...
oh, they're looking.
They are.
Klid flashes. That Zhonya's hourglass was necessary. Flashes stay safe, and Klid cannot find the target. Kabe is doing so much in this game. There is no smite for SKT. This is the Baron setup you want.
I mean, when you talk about 80 carries in Europe, Kabe's name really doesn't come up until 4th best, but that was the play that really needed to happen right there. Just denied so much from SKT. Guaranteed the Baron for Splice. Hats off to Kabe.
20 seconds of the respawn, 5v4. There's no catch ult up right now, but Khan over the wall, they're engaging a 4v5, which means he's just gonna lose GA, and he's almost certainly gonna die right afterwards. He killed himself burning his own flash, and it's time for Splice to push.
And back-to-back desperation plays from SKT mean that now Splice are going to have 40 seconds to end the game in a 5v4 situation.
The inhibitor itself is going to be free. The question is how much else they can get in the 30 seconds of 5v4 with the Baron buff. Top lane, that's an easy target. The wave's being pushed in. They try for the engage, and Klid is going to pull back one, but Chachi is very, very tanky. Pops the hourglass, gets some time, forced to flash away. Looks like he might stay alive, gets away from the hook. In comes Mata and tries to build the play. The shuffle for Faker, 5v4, and they're claiming kills 2 for 2. The fight stays alive. Can Faker though, and he's gonna jump back. The cannon minions shoot. Xerxes over the top finds that kill, and they deliver the rest of the team. It's only Khan keeping SKT away from death, and Splice will not be stopped. They will take down game 3. Backs against the wall. Predictions be damned. Splice showing signs of life in this series.
Splice won't go quietly into the night. We got the best look at them right there. They simplified. They kept it to ease of execution. That is the bread and butter of Splice gameplay. Lose the series or not, I'm happy that we got to see that iteration of Splice actually take stage in this series.
And if I'm going to put my blindly optimistic hat on right now for Splice, they've won 1.5 games.